Zick is big. Zick is big. Okay, hopefully it's good now. Hopefully it's good. Anthony, welcome. Smashing that like button. I appreciate you, DV. Hopefully you're good, bro.
What are you eating, Bob?
I am eating Brussels sprout salad. It's got Brussels sprouts. It looks like cranberries, blue cheese, romaine lettuce, I'm assuming. It's got a little bit of bacon. And, of course, the Brussels sprouts. It's so good. Primo. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, poor Mike. Welcome. All right, here we go. So we are on.
Good besides the blue cheese, though.
The blue cheese actually kind of does it good. This mix-up is weird, bro. Like, it's actually really good. I thought the same thing, and then I tried it, and I can't go back, bro. Jason, welcome. All right, so we are reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is by Sarah J. Maas. We're on chapter 15. Let me remember what happened last as a recap. Last week chapter, we found out that Farah went out on her own, and she went out into the woods to find this certain character or this certain beast that she wanted to trap. And Lucian said, "Hey, if you need help, I'll be a scream away. I'll be out there and I'll hear you." She meets this, I think, Septar or something like that. Let me see if I can find its name. But she catches it, like traps it, and it's kind of antagonizing her at first, and like, yo, come a little closer, like, hey, you shouldn't be here, like all these things. DV says, I gotta go to sleep. Have a good night. Yo, thank you so much. I hope you have a good night as well. Be safe out there, all right? But so then what happened is they were talking a little bit. She was looking for answers. It started giving her answers. And it was like, yo, you shouldn't be here. You actually should be with them. He's going to be able to protect you. He's a high lord. And she's like, he's a high lord? Like, what? And then he's like, he senses something. And he's like, yo, you got to run. You got to run, but first let me go. Let me go, and you got to run. You just got to go. She's like, what's going on? And she saw these figures, these shadows coming from the woods. And before she could do anything, they showed up. So let's start there. Chapter 15. The Naga were sprung from a nightmare, covered in dark scales and nothing more. There were a horrendous combination of serpentine figures and male humanoid bodies, whose powerful arms ended in polished black flesh-shredding talons. Where the creatures, I have to position myself better. That's slightly down. I could come back a little bit. I think I prefer that for now. So that way, not only can TikTok see the book, but all the other platforms can as well. Here, where the creatures of the blood-filled legends, the ones that slip through the wall to torment and slaughter mortals. The ones I would have been glad to kill that day in the snowy woods. Their huge, almond-shaped eyes greedily took the sorrel and me. Took in the sorrel and me. The four of them paused across the clearing, the sorrel between us, and I trained my arrow toward the one in the center. The creature smiled, a row of razor-sharp teeth greeting me as a silvery forked tongue darted out. Ooh, shit. That's pretty insane. Gracie, sharing the stream. Ow, ow! That's what I'm talking about, Gracie. Thank you so much. That's how you know you're a bossy boss. Gotta itch my nose. The creature smiled, a row of razor-sharp teeth greeting me, and a silvery forked tongue darted out. The Dark Mother has sent us a gift today, brothers, he said, gazing at the sorrel, who was clawing at the snare now. The Naga's amber eye shifted toward me again. And a meal. Not much to eat, another one said, flexing its claws. I began backing away toward the stream, toward the manor below, keeping my arrows pointed at them. One scream from me would notify. Lucien, but my breath was thin, and he might not come at all. If he'd sent me here, I kept every sense fixed on my repeating steps. Human, the sorrel begged. I had 10 arrows, 9. Once I fired the one knocked in my bow, none of them ash, but maybe they'd keep the Naga down long enough for me to flee. I backed away another step. The 4 Naga crept closer, as if savoring the slowness of the hunt, as if they already knew how I tasted. I had 3 heartbeats to make up my mind, 3 heartbeats to execute my plan. I drew my bowstring farther back, my arm trembling, and then I screamed, sharp and loud, and with every bit of my air in my 2 tight lungs. I follow back, says, hi, can I be mod? I've joined 10 times before. I do recognize that follow back. I do recognize you. However, I do have a mod for the stream. I do appreciate you. You have to build more. You have to build more of a relationship and show the value that you're able to provide. Apple user 784923, smashing that follow button. Welcome to the Smashers. Boom, baby. Ow, ow. Usually people who come in the stream and immediately ask for that don't have good intentions. So, not that you don't, but usually they don't. And then I screamed, sharp and loud, with every bit of my air in my 2 tight lungs. With the Naga now focused entirely on me, I fired at the tether holding the sorrel in place. The snare shattered like a shadow on the wind. The sorrel was off. A blast of dark that set the forced Naga stuttering back. The closest one to me surged toward the sorrel, the strong column of its scaly neck stretching out. No chance of my movements being considered an unprovoked attack anymore. Not now that they'd seen my aim. They still wanted to kill me, so I let my arrow fly, the tip glittering like a shooting star through the gloom of the forest. I had all of a blink before it struck home, and blood sprayed. The Naga toppled back just as the remaining 3 whirled to me. I didn't know if it was a killing shot. I was already gone. I raced for the stream using the path I calculated earlier, not daring to look back. Lucien had said he would be nearby, but I was deep in the woods, too far from the manor to help. Branches and twigs snapping behind me, too close, and snarls that sounded like nothing I'd heard from Tamlin or Lucian or the wolf or any other animal that stood still in these woods. My only hope of getting away alive lay in outrunning them long enough to reach Lucian, and then only if he was there and he'd promised to be. I didn't let myself think of all the hills I would have to climb once I cleared the forest itself, or what I would have to do if Lucian had changed his mind. The crashing through the bushes became louder, closer, and I veered to the right, leaping over the stream. Running water might have stopped the Suriel, but a hiss and a thud close behind me told me it did nothing to hold the Naga at bay. I careened through a thicket, and thorn ripped at my cheeks. I barely felt their stinging kisses or the warm blood sliding down my face. I didn't even have time to wince, not as two dark figures flanked me, closing in to cut me off. My knees groaned as I pushed myself harder, focusing on the growing brightness of the wood's end. But the Naga to my right rushed at me, so fast that I could only leap aside to avoid the slashing talons. I stumbled but stayed upright. Just as the Naga on my left pounced, I hurled myself into a stop, swinging my bow up in a wide arc. I nearly lost my grip as it connected with the serpentine's face, and bone crushed with a horrific screech. I hurled over his enormous fallen body, not pausing to look for all the others. I made it 3 feet before the third Naga stopped in front of me. I swung my bow at his head. He dodged it. The other two hissed as they came up behind me, and I gripped the bow harder, surrounded. I turned in a slow circle, bow ready to strike. One of them sniffed at me. Those slitted nostrils flared. Scrawny human thing, he spat to the others, whose smiling grew sharper. Do you know what you've cost us? I wouldn't go down without a fight, without taking some of them down with me. Go to hell, I said, but it came out in a gasp. They laughed, stepping nearer. I swung the bow at the closest. Welcome back, AJ. Apple user 784923, smashing that follow button. Welcome to the Smashers. Boom, baby. Ow, ow. Dodged it. Cluckling. We've had our sport. We'll have our sport, though you might not find it as amusing. I gritted my teeth as I swung again. I would not be hunted down like a deer amongst the wolves. I would find a way out of this. I would. A black-clawed hand closed around the shaft of my bow, and a resounding snap echoed through the 2 silent woods. The air left my chest in a whoosh, and I only had time to half turn before one of them grabbed me by the throat and hurled me to the ground. He pounded my arm so hard against the earth that my bones groaned and my fingers splayed, dropping the remnants of the bow. When we're done ripping off your skin, you'll wish you hadn't crossed into Perithian. He'd breathed into my face, the reek of carrion shoving down my throat. I gagged. We'll cut you up so fine there won't be much of the crows to pick at. A white-hot flame went through me. Rage or terror or wild instinct, I don't know. I didn't think. I grabbed the knife in my boot and I slammed it into his leathery face. Blood rained down onto my face, into my mouth as I bellowed my fury, my terror. The Naga slumped back. I scrambled up before the remaining 2 could pin me, but something rock hard hit my face. I tasted blood and soil and grass as I hit the earth. Stars danced in my vision, and I stumbled to my feet again out of instinct, grabbing for Lucian's hunting knife. Not like this, not like this, not like this. One of them lunged at me, and I dodged aside. His talons caught my cloak and yanked, ripping it into ribbons just like the companion threw me to the ground. Just as his companion threw me to the ground. My arms tearing beneath those claws. You'll bleed, one of them panted, laughing under his breath as the knife I lifted. We'll bleed you nice and slow. He wiggled his talons perfect for deep, brutal cutting. He opened his mouth again and a bone-shattering roar sounded through the clearing, only it hadn't come from these creatures' throat. The noise hadn't finished echoing before the Naga went flying off of me, crashing into a tree so hard that the wood cracked. I made out of gleaming gold of his mask and the hair and the long deadly claws before Tamlin tore into the creature. Dang, Tamlin? I'm getting goosebumps, alright? The Naga holding me shrieked and released his grip, leaping to his feet as Tamlin's claws shredded through his companion's neck. Flesh and blood ripped away. I kept low to the ground, knife at the ready, waiting. Tamlin let out another roar and made the marrow of the bones go cold and revealed those lengthened canines. The remaining creatures darted for the woods. He only got a few steps before Tamlin tackled him, pinned him to the earth, and disemboweled the Naga in one deep, long swipe. I remained where I lay, my face half buried in leaves and twigs and moss. I didn't try to raise myself. I was shaking so badly that I thought I would fall apart at the seams. It was all I could do to keep holding that knife. Tamlin got to his feet, wrenching his claws out of the creature's abdomen. Blood and gore dripped from them, staining the deep green moss. High Lord, High Lord, High Lord. Feral rage was still smothered in his gaze, and I flinched as he knelt beside me. He reached for me again, but I jerked back, away from the bloody claws that were still out. I raised myself into a sitting position before shaking resumed. I knew I couldn't go to my feet. Farah, he said. The wrath faded from his eyes, and the claws slipped back under his skin, but the roar still sounded in my ears. There had been nothing in that sound but pure fury, primal fury. How? It was all I could manage to say, but he understood me. I was tracking a pack of them. These 4 escaped, and must have followed your scent through the woods. I heard you scream. So he didn't know about the Suriel? And he'd come to help me? He reached a hand toward me, and I shuddered as he ran cool. Wet fingers down my stinging, aching cheek. Blood. That was blood on them. What up, Bob? Bob, I see you here. And from the stiffness on my face, I knew there was already enough blood splattered on me that it wouldn't make a difference. The pain in my face and my arm faded, then vanished. His eyes darkened a bit at the bruise I knew was already blossoming on my cheekbone. But the throbbing quickly lessened. The metallic scent of magic wrapped around me, then floated away on a light breeze. I found one dead half a mile away. He went on, his hands leaving my face as he unbuckled his baldric, then shuckled off his tunic and handed it to me. The front of my own had been ripped and torn by the talons of Naga. I saw one of my arrows in his throat, so I followed their tracks here. I pulled on Tamlin's tunic over my own, ignoring how easily I could see the cut of his muscles beneath his white shirt. The way the blood soaking it made them stand out even more. A purebred predator, honed to kill without a second thought, without remorse. I shivered again and savored the warmth that leaked through from the cloak. High Lord, I should have known, should have guessed. Maybe I hadn't wanted to. Maybe I'd be afraid. Here, he said, rising to his feet and offering me a blood-stained hand. I didn't dare look at the slaughtered Naga as I gripped his extended hand and pulled me to my feet. My knees buckled, but I stayed upright. I stared at our linked hands, both coated in blood that wasn't our own. No, he hadn't been the only one to spill blood just now. And it wasn't just my blood that still coated my tongue. Perhaps that made me as much of a beast as him. But he saved me. Killed for me. I spat onto the grass, wishing I hadn't lost my canteen. Do I want to know what you were doing here? He asked. No, definitely not. Not after he warned me plenty of times already. I thought I wasn't confined to the house and garden. I didn't realize I'd come so far. He dropped my hand. On the days that I called away to deal with trouble, stay close to the house. On the days that I'm called away to deal with trouble, stay close to the house. I nodded a bit numbly. Thank you, I mumbled, fighting past the shaking raking of my body. My mind, the Naga's blood on me became nearly unbearable. I spat again. Not just for this. For saving my life, I mean. I wanted to tell him how much that meant, that the High Lord of the Spring Court, that I was worth saving, but it couldn't find the words. His fangs vanished. It was the least I could do. They shouldn't have gotten this far onto my lands. He shook his head, more at himself, his shoulders slumping. Let's go home, he said, sparing me the effort of explaining why I'd been out here in the first place. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that the manor wasn't my home, that I might not even have a home at all anymore. We walked back in silence, both of us blood-drenched and pale. I could still sense the carnage we left behind, the blood-soaked ground and trees, the pieces of the Naga. Well, I learned something from the Suriel. At least, even if it wasn't entirely what I wanted to hear or know. Stay with the High Lord. Fine, easy enough. But for the history lesson it had been in the middle of giving me, about wicked kings and their commanders and however they tied to the High Lord at my side and the blight, I still didn't have enough specifics to be able to thoroughly warn my family, but the Suriel had told me not to go looking for further answers. I had a feeling I would surely be a fool to ignore his advice. My family would have to make do with the bare bones of my knowledge. Then, hopefully it would be enough. I didn't ask Tamlin anything more about the Naga, about how many he killed before the force slipped away. Didn't ask him anything at all, because I didn't detect a trace of triumph in him, but rather a deep, unending sort of shame and defeat. Chapter 16. So, recap real quick. We got into chapter 15 where she was, and we're almost halfway through. That's interesting. We got to the beginning, like at the beginning of chapter 15, we noticed that they were surrounded by these creatures, and the creatures' names were again the Naga. So the Naga surrounded them in the beginning. The Suriel said, "Let me go and get away, and Tamlin's your best option." Lucian was supposed to be there. He was supposed to be there to help out. Why wasn't he? Did he set her up? Or was he there, but he saw Tamlin and couldn't interfere, because if Tamlin knew that he knew, or he set it up, then he would also be dead. So was he looking out for his own life? But at the same time, she was getting chased down for quite some time. She had to take them down. He said he was going to be there, and he wasn't. So I want to know more about that. Your word is everything, and he was not there. She did what he said, which was scream as loud as you can. Go to the water if needed. Obviously, she didn't expect to see them. However, she was being a bossy boss and defending herself to the maximum, did not give up, even under all odds that she may be dead. She fought and fought and fought and gave her all. And I love that about her. And because she kept continuing to fight and fight and fight, it gave enough time for Tamlin to get there and protect her. Now, why does Tamlin feel down? Probably because she got hurt. And on his watch, he's supposed to be protecting her. So I feel like he may feel that he was not guarding the lands well enough and allowed them to slip through his cracks because he was hunting them. And because they slipped through his cracks, they ended up getting to her. So I feel like he's kind of going hard on himself a little bit because he didn't get to them soon enough, and she was harmed in that process. So he's blaming himself in this moment. Now, chapter 16, I think we're going to need to find some answers from Lucien. Lucien, I want to know what was going on, why he didn't show up, why he wasn't there, and I'm assuming it's because he saw Tamlin. Don't know for sure, but that's what I'm assuming. So I would like to know more. I'm very intrigued. We're going to end it at chapter 16, and we're going to come back to we will start on chapter 16 next Thursday. If you guys have any thoughts, questions, concerns, definitely love to hear them.